Testimony continues this morning in the Kim Potter trial in Minnesota. The former police officer shot and killed Daunte Wright in an April traffic stop. Yesterday, prosecutors walked the jury through the differences between Potter's handgun and her taser. Potter says that she thought she was shooting Wright with her taser, not a service weapon.
It appeared to me in watching this that there was a manipulation in some way of her holster.
Why did that attract your attention?
I've seen it before on other videos I've watched of officers. I myself have done that when I was on patrol. Just caught my attention.
We welcome now Bernarda Villalona. She is a former senior homicide prosecutor. Thank you for joining us this morning on Start Your Day.
Thank you, Naja.
The prosecution is expected to wrap up its case later this week. Kim Potter is expected to take the stand in her own defense. Will that be a deciding factor in this trial?
Absolutely. This case is not looking good for the prosecution. Here in this case with Kim Potter testifying, what's going to be so crucial in her testimony is what was in her mind when she decided to pull out her gun instead of her taser. That's going to be a deciding factor because the jury's going to have to decide whether she knowingly took an unreasonable risk when she mistook her gun for her taser. So it's going to be crucial for the jury to know what was in her mind. And you know, the growing trend now around the country with these recent defendants testifying and crying, it's actually affected the decision making of the jury.
Wow. Let's talk about the gunshot wound that killed Daunte Wright. The medical examiner said yesterday a single gunshot wound killed him. Why is that significant?
Well, when you're talking about any homicide case, one of the crucial elements that you have to prove is that the person died as a result of at the hands of another person. So that's why it's important, because cause of death as well as manner of death has to be homicide and a cause at the hands of another. If you can't prove that basic element, then the person, you have to find them not guilty. So that's just a basic in any case. I didn't see anything surprising that was going to come out of his testimony.
And we've heard a lot about Potter's mental state and how that may play into the situation. Do you expect the defense to use stress as a main reason that she pulled her gun instead of the taser?
Absolutely. So you got to think, even from the very beginning, to an opening statement, this case has focused on the defense actually focusing on that Daunte Wright did this to himself. Daunte Wright should have obeyed the rules. Daunte Wright, had he listened to the officers, that he would be with us now. So what the defense is going to do is expand more on what was on the mind of Kim Potter at the time that she approached this vehicle, that he was moving around, that they knew that he had a warrant, that they knew that he was wanted for a while. So all of this is going to play a role. I'll tell you this, Naja. What's damning and what people aren't talking about is what happened on Friday. And on Friday, the prosecution's own witness, Major Johnson, testified that even with Potter taking out the firearm, that she was justified and used a deadly force because Daunte Wright was about to drive away, and it could have caused him death or serious bodily injury.
And elaborate, what is the significance of that?
So the significance of that is that now the defense have put forward an alternative theory in this case. So that alternative theory, even if Kim Potter intentionally took out the gun and shot Daunte Wright, what that officer, Major Johnson, testified to is like, look, Kim Potter would have been in the right. She would have been justified. We wouldn't be here in court today. So even if you find that Kim Potter, oh my gosh, she mistook the taser, the gun for the taser, and that shouldn't have happened. She's been working for 26 years. This officer is telling you, even if that happened, doesn't matter. She was justified in shooting Daunte Wright because he was about to drive away, having the officer's body halfway inside of the vehicle, and it could have dragged him.
And so talk a little bit more about that, because a lot of the focus was whether or not the officer was inside or outside of the car. Explain the rationale behind that line of questioning.
So exactly, that's why the focus yesterday became on whether the officer was inside and outside. As you can see, yesterday there were a lot of objections as to why is this agent coming in to testify about whether the officer was inside or outside when the video speaks for itself. And Judge Chu even sustained that objection, stating, "Look, the video speaks for itself. The jury is the fact finder. They could determine whether he was inside or outside." Because what's going to come at the end is that during closing arguments, the prosecutor is going to say, look, the officer's body was outside. So if the officer's body was outside, then there's no risk that that officer would have been dragged. The defense is going to say the officer's body was on the inside. So if the officer's body was on the inside, then Kim Potter had to take whatever means that she could in order to prevent Daunte Wright from driving away and dragging that officer. So she would have been justified in the sense of using deadly force, as Major Johnson testified to. As you can also see yesterday, that the prosecution filed a motion to try to get that testimony stricken from the record so the jury won't consider it. That decision hasn't been made yet.
Well, Bernarda, thank you so much for sharing your insight.